Hey everybody, and welcome back to the mainstream indie music channel. This is season 2, I guess you could say. We wrapped up our first year last week, 52 episodes, and thank you all for the support, for the comments. You guys crack me up sometimes. I got to give a special shout out to the 263 subscribers that we have. And if you're just visiting, we're so happy to have you here. This week we have a interesting band. JOHNNYSWIM is the name, and what it is they are a husband-wife duo. They're kind of in the folk indie field. They broke into the mainstream a little bit on the recording of one of their albums. They hired a mainstream music producer who worked with artists such as Sam Smith, but especially their beginning is just the two of them, recording music together. And what's kind of funny is when I was doing research into JOHNNYSWIM, there's not a lot about them online, of course, other than kind of like your general articles about them where they just kind of go on like a press tour, you could say. And so it's more of them just talking about the newest album that's going to come out, not so much like their history or the band history. And then I found a nice synopsis right on their own website, which kind of explained everything perfectly. Because, in the beginning, like I've told you guys before, I really, used to just focus on like, a band's Wikipedia page or like one article. And then I just kind of thought like, that's such a cheap way to just get information. Plus, I would love to hear from the artists themselves. And what better way than to go on their own website and have, everything just written out perfectly in front of you. So this is the article. JOHNNYSWIM are going to go into, their history and so on and so forth. But we're going to first kind of dive into the background of one of them, Amanda's, which is one of the, duo's history. What's kind of funny is her mom was Donna Summer, who is really the queen of disco. So she definitely had a musical background, And what's kind of funny, too, is her father is Bruce Sudano. I hope I'm saying that right. But he's a songwriter, and he worked with artists such as Michael Jackson, Dolly Parton, Reba, as well. And he actually founded an indie record label as well, which is called Purple Heart Recording Company. And so, definitely she is unlike a lot of, you could say, goes against the grain of the indie artists that I've talked about, which literally just kind of started out, from the bottom, didn't know how things would work. She came from a musical family, right? Like, definitely I could see have some kind of connections, definitely had like musical training growing up. You could say, like she was really sculpted and molded to have that as her path. And she was born in Los Angeles as well. So, she definitely had a lot of family. Even if you go into her other family, she had a cousin who was a musical producer as well. What's kind of funny is she has one of her uncles is a Roman Catholic priest, part of the family. But then when she was a teenager, she went and their family moved to Nashville, Tennessee. She actually started out just as a model, and she was pretty successful. She got into Louis Vuitton. She was really like the face of them for a while, especially in the black community, and really got highlighted there. But what's kind of interesting is she wasn't really interested in staying with that. Like you could kind of imagine at that point, you could see her just saying, hey, this is my career. I got everything set up for me now. But she wanted to do music. And what happened was she decided to kind of get some refresher classes. Like, even though her family she had come from a musical family. She hadn't been in the musical field for quite some time. So right after college and right after her short modeling career, she took a few lessons in Nashville, and it was kind of at a writing session more so. And that's where she met the other half of the Johnny Swim group, and his name is Abner. So that's where he started off, and he was also a part of that group as well. And what's kind of funny is it's one of those where he hit it off with her immediately, but she didn't reciprocate the feelings right away. But eventually, they started to get together, and not only, relationship-wise, but they realized, hey, we're writing a lot of music together. And, he had a passion for playing music. She had a passion for playing and singing music. They decided, what if we become a duo? And that's what they decided to do. Now, the name Johnny Swim is, of course, neither, his name is not Johnny. She said it's actually based off of a pet goldfish that she used to have as a child growing up. And she had come home from school, realized the parents had said that the fish had died, and she said, no, it's not dead. Swim, Johnny, swim. And that's where the name came from. But their start is very similar to many, beginning artists. They just decided to tour like crazy. And really, so the timeline is they got married in 2009. And around that time, I believe it was in 2008, 2009, that's when their debut EP, Johnny Swim, came out. But it wasn't until, about 4 or 5 years later in 2013, they had an EP called Heartbeats EP, where one of their famous songs, which you got to check out, called Don't Let It Get You Down, really helped break them through. That was their huge breakthrough. Had a ton of Spotify streams. As you have to imagine, during this period of time, unlike a lot of indie artists that I talked about in the past, which kind of came through the beginning of the internet phase, this is kind of, the internet's well established in regards of music. So this is Spotify era has really started to come out. That's when they got big. And so they decided to release their first full-length album, Diamonds, which was in 2014, kind of riding off that success. And one of their singles called Home became a hit on the reality show Fixer Upper, which you got to imagine, was huge, right? Because that's a very popular TV show. They had another, hit off of that album as well. So they decided to do a worldwide tour. They hit the TV circuits as well. In early 2017. Now, this is their third full-length album, Moonlight, which received success as well. And around that time, we're entering into 2019, 2020. That's when they really wanted to go big. Around that time, for them as a family, they had just started to have their own children. They didn't want to record kind of at home anymore. So that's where they went big. And I believe, it really paid off for them. Because that's when they released Johnny Swim was in 2022. And really, since then, they have ventured into having their own television show as well. But then they kind of went away from that. And now simply, this is a case of they have their core audience, and so they just tour for them. So that is the history of Johnny Swim, how they met, how they came up with the band, and how they are today. Tune in next week for our next episode.